Hello, I'm Mongala Bongala and welcome to my channel. Today I'm sharing the build that I was using to quickly finish the put cleaner members on the bleed status effect. This is an all red build, although it's not the highest damage you can get in the game, but it can still be fairly competitive in heroic and higher up group play. So without further delay, let's start with specialization. The specialization I went for is the gunner. I like to run and gun mostly and not sit behind cover, which this specialization plays into kind of nicely. You have the incessant, which gives you 10% armor on kill, and the coupler passive, which makes every third reload 50% faster, so you don't just run out of bullets in the mag and then you have to stand there for 5 seconds every time you reload. We have the hardened armor kits, which give you 100% armor and 30% bonus armor for 10 seconds. The riot foam grenade, which ensnares enemies. The supply line, which generates 10% of total ammo capacity every 60 seconds, and party members get 5%. The emplacement, 15% weapon handling while not moving. Even though I don't use it that much, it can still be handy to have, and you need to stay still for 1 second for it to be in effect. And we also have the barrage, or barrage, I don't know how to pronounce it, but rate of fire increases by 5% on kill for 5 seconds, which is quite nice. And we also get the banshee pulse, which confuses enemies in the wave, and it goes through cover also. Although you can't CC them if they're on another level than you. So if they're above or below you, you can't confuse them. You could use any specialization you want, really, but I feel like the gunner is the best for this. The skills I'm using are the Reviver Hive, which picks you up if you go down, and you can throw it out to an ally if they go down, and it will resurrect them. And the second skill is the Banshee Pulse. It's an arc in front of you that charges up, so the longer you hold it, the thinner and longer it becomes. It applies disoriented status effects on targets and it pulses them. So the disoriented effect is 5 seconds and the pulse is almost 14 seconds. And it goes through cover, but if the enemy is above or below you, it doesn't hit them. The mods I have for the Hive are 9.6% Reviver Armor Repair, so you get more armor when you get up. 9.4% health, so the Hive is a little bit more tanky, although if the enemies focus it, it will go down either way. And the last mod is 4 repair charges. It doesn't make a difference when you're solo, because if you go down, it uses up all the charges. But if you throw it out to a friend in need, you can pick it up again afterwards and it will still have 3 charges left. And for the pulse, I'm using 15% effect duration, and this mod is from the specialization. Skill haste can be good as well, but this 15% gives it a higher uptime overall compared to 5.5% skill haste that I have and compare it with. and the second mod is the increased cone size. So it gives it 2 meters and 1.4 meter here. Unfortunately, this radius mod from the specialization doesn't do anything for the Banshee pulse, which is a bit weird, I think, considering it's from the specialization. But yeah. Another good skill you could use would be the jammer pulse, if you're facing a lot of Black Tusk, for example. So it works the same way as the Banshee. You hold down the button and the circle around you grows, and it applies disrupt status effects on targets. So all the dogs and stuff like that will go down for a little bit. So the effect duration is 5.7 seconds on this one. As for weapons, I'm using the Carnage, which is a named version of the Negev, also the same as Bullet King. It's got 14% LMG damage, 11% damage to target out of cover, 6% damage to armor. And it's got Perfect Sadist, deal plus 25% weapon damage to bleeding enemies. After 3 kills, applies bleed to the next enemy you hit. And my secondary weapon will be the classic M1A. It's got 14% rifle damage, 16% critical hit damage, and 10% damage to target out of cover. And with the regular Sadist talent, so instead of 25%, it's 20% weapon damage to bleeding enemies, and instead of after 3 kills, it's after 4 kills. Applies bleed to the next enemy you hit. If you don't have Carnage, the LMGs I would suggest would be the Infantry MG5. This one have 20% higher headshot damage than all the other LMGs. Why, I don't know, but yeah. Other good options would be you want the Infantry MG5, since the regular MG5 only has 3 mod slots, and this one has 4. The military MK46 could be a good option as well. The RPM is kinda low, but yeah. And then we have the tactical M249 Para. Like the difference between these with longer names and different names, like this M249B and M249 Para, like the difference is very small. It's just some extra accuracy or stability or something like that. And there's also the black market M60 E6, which I don't have on me at the moment, but it's this one. Like the difference between this and a regular M60, for example, is a regular M60 only has 3 mod slots, while the other one has 4. And if you don't have a classic M1A, you could use the, let's see, rifles. You could use the either military or police MK17, or the SOCOM M1A, or the M1A CQB, which is another version of this one. If you want to use an assault rifle, I would suggest using the FAMAS or the Police M4, which I don't have any one of, so it's this one. Their high rate of fire and decent damage, so their DPS is quite high. On these assault rifles, I would suggest you go damage to target out of cover, since you get health damage on this one, and health damage, and if you would go damage to armor, would work against each other, since nothing has both of them at the same time. And yeah, the talent I'm using on all of them is either perfect sadist or regular sadist. As for your sidearm, it doesn't really matter what you use, in my opinion. I barely use mine ever at all. At the moment I have a double barrel sawed-off equipped. It's got 13% shotgun damage, 10% damage to armor, and 9% damage to target out of cover, with preservation as talent. Could go with the M45A1, for example. It's a decent gun. The D50. You could use the Mozambique Special, which is also a M41A1, but it has perfect breadbasket. Just go with what you feel like, I think, is the best option for sidearm. The mods, I have critical hit chance, critical hit chance, critical hit damage, and 50 rounds that you get from the specialization on my LMG with the carbon die. And on my classic M1A I have critical hit damage, and plus 5 rounds with the Liberty die. And on my double barrel I have sidekick and nothing else, because you can't put anything else on it. As for armor, I'm using the Coyote's Mask with 15% weapon damage, 6% critical hit chance, 11.3% critical hit damage. And it's got the talent Pack Instincts. You and your ally gain a bonus based on the distance of the last enemy you hit. 0 to 15 meters is 25% critical hit damage, 15 to 25 meters is 10% critical hit damage and 10% critical hit chance. And if you shoot at 25 meters plus, it's 25% critical hit chance. You can get this weapon either from the Season Pass at level 35, so here, or you can get it from the last boss, Coyote, in Jefferson Trade Center, which is over here in DC. On my backpack I am using the Providence Defense backpack. 15% weapon damage, 12% critical hit damage, and 10% headshot damage. And it's got the talent Wicked. Applying a status effect increases total weapon damage by 18% for 20 seconds. So this one works together with the chest piece, the Providence Defense with 15% weapon damage, 4.7% critical hit chance, 10.4% critical hit damage, and Trauma. Applies blind to an enemy hit in the head, cooldown 30 seconds, applies bleed to an enemy hit in the chest, cooldown 30 seconds. So every time we apply a blind or a bleed from this chest piece, or every time we apply bleed from our weapon with the Sadist talent, or when we disrupt, or sorry, when we foam enemies with our riot foam grenade, or when we disorient or disrupt with the pulse. We will get the weapon damage from the Wicked talent. Then we have the Petrov defense group gloves, the contractor's gloves, which has 15% weapon damage, 8% damage to armor, and 12% critical hit damage. This damage to armor is multiplicative, and it's the best piece no matter what weapon you're using for gloves. For holster we have the Cheska Viroba, which gives 15% weapon damage, 12% critical hit damage, and 10% headshot damage. And lastly we have the Overlord named Fox's Prayer. 15% weapon damage, 8% damage to target out of cover, and 12% critical hit damage. And this damage to target out of cover is also multiplicative and works the same way as the damage to armor. And it's the best in slot item here as well. Now if you don't have these named items, or if you don't want to use the Kayaris mask, you could use another Providence, for example. Or if you want to use assault rifles, you could use a Fenris group somewhere. You could also use a Cheska piece or a Grupo piece. Grupo is the same as using a Providence though, so both of them give critical hit damage if you use an extra one. I would not suggest using Grupo or Cheska on backpack, chest or head, because Grupo have a yellow mod slot and Cheska has a blue mod slot. And to get as much damage as possible, you want a red mod slot. So you can use here also Cheska or Providence. Yeah, you can mix and match kind of how you want, but if you drop these two pieces, you will drop damage, because this is worth a lot more than like 6% crit chance, for example. The mods for my armor are 11.7% critical hit damage, 11.8% critical hit damage, and 11.4% critical hit damage. I am currently level 846 in my Shade Watch, and I get almost 25.4 thousand health as a bonus. I have critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and weapon damage maxed out. And I have 20 points in headshot damage, which gives me 8% currently. So I could get 12% more here. In my blue I have explosive resistance, hazard protection, and total armor maxed out. And I have 19 points in total health, which gives me 3.8%. So I'm missing 6.2%. In my yellow one I have accuracy, stability, and reload speed maxed out. I feel like these ones is a lot better compared to ammo capacity. But yeah, I have 19 points in here, so I'm missing 12.4%. So I get 7.6% extra ammo, which is, I guess, nice, but not a must. And here I have skill haste, skill duration, and skill damage maxed out. And 19 points in skill repair, so 3.8%, so I'm missing 6.2. As for these stats, I got Perfect Sadist on my Carnage, I got Sadist on my classic M1A, and Preservation on my double barrel sawed-off. And this is the minigun. So my Carnage has 87.6 thousand weapon damage, 50.7% critical hit chance, 154.6% critical hit damage, and 103% headshot damage. The stats I'm getting from my mask is usually the middle boost, which gives 10% extra critical hit chance, which puts me at the cap, so 60.7% critical hit chance, and 164.6 critical hit damage, since it gives 10% of each. I also have 14% armor damage, so 8% from Contractor's Gloves, and 6% from damage to armor on my Carnage. And then I have 11% damage to target out of cover from this one, and another 8% from the Fox's Prayer. So 19% damage to target out of cover. On my classic M1A, I have 40% critical hit chance, 175.6% critical hit damage, and 98% headshot damage. So with this one, when I'm using my rifle on this build, I'm usually a bit further away than with the LMG, so I prefer to get the big critical hit chance buff on this one, which also puts me above the cap. So it puts me at, in total I would have 65, but since you can't go over the cap, it's still at 60. But I can't make the critical hit chance come down to 35 on this weapon, since I only have critical hit damage mods on it. I also have 8% armor damage from the Contractor's Gloves, and I have the 10% damage to target out of cover from this, and another 8% from the Fox's Prayer. Then for the double barrel sawed-off, I got 40% critical hit chance and 149.6 critical hit damage, 83% headshot damage, 18% armor damage, and then
friendly supply on foot in proximity.
9% from this, and another 8% damage to target out of cover from Fox's Prayer, so 17% in total. I got 100% all weapon damage bonus, 25% rifle damage bonus, and 39% LMG damage bonus. And 15 pistol, but it should be in shotgun. So we have Wicked with Trauma, which gives us another 18% weapon damage. And it works with the grenade, the Banshee Pulse, the bleed from this one, and the bleed from the weapons, and the blind from this one. I'm using 2 Peace Providence, 1 Petrov, 1 Sheska, 1 Overlord, and the Coyote's mask. In total I have 726,000 armor. I get 72k armor every kill. I have 306,000 max health. Little bit of regen. And yeah, 10% resistance to most of the things from the watch. Feel free to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a dislike if you didn't. Also feel free to leave a comment if there's something I forgot or if there is something you would like to see on the channel. Here is some heroic gameplay of me taking a control point with this build. Stay safe, wash your hands, and thanks for watching.
Detected. Location guarded by heavily armed hostiles. Reinforcements incoming. Serious trauma detected. Heavily armed hostiles guarding location nearby. Assistance needed. Agent out of action.
It's gonna blow! Go check it out there! Come on, let's go! I'm with you! I'll destroy it now! I'm surrounded! You got one of us! I'll kill you! You need to leave us alone!
Heavily armored hostile
No
detected.
ammo left! Looking for the element of surprise!
Detecting additional hostile contacts. Detected. Location guarded by heavily armed hostiles.
Reloading! Cover me! Finally, a decent shot!
Heavily armed hostiles detected.
Outflank them! Run!
Heavily armed hostiles guarding location nearby.
How did I run out already? I can't believe it. We won!
Supply room access unlocked.
I'm so glad you were there. Thanks. Let's go already! Okay, our job is to secure this area.
Detected. Location guarded by heavily armed hostiles.